I am Neil.
I'm Veronica. We fell in love when we were 16, and here we are talking about what life is all about for us. Thank you for joining us.
This is a Life Is podcast with Neil and Veronica.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Life Is with Neil and Veronica. And we obviously want to chat to you today about something that Veronica brought up to me, because this topic is very, let's say, unique, because we want to talk about life is being unique. So I'm going to pass it right over to you, Veronica, to chat about your thoughts on that.
I feel like I have a lot to say on this, but I'm going to start it off with a story right off the bat. Maybe there's a few stories. I feel like there's a story for each of our kids, probably ourselves too. But, so our son just started an activity, finally, by the way. So he's our middle. And, Neil and I always said, we don't ever want him to feel like there's that generalized or that stigma of being the middle child. But we finally signed him up for an activity. So our oldest, as you know, is in competitive cheer, right? We have one vehicle. And so with the other two, we also sometimes talk about birth order and just how, we were striving to do so much with our oldest, and we wanted to kind of take it a bit slower, not as much in our schedule with the other two. So all to say, we signed up our son for an activity, and he was so excited because he often sees us taking, our oldest daughter to cheer, doing other things. Sometimes she gets to stop at a place on the way home and bring home a treat, right? And so he's so excited that there was something just for him. So I bring him to the activities. First day, there are 3 coaches that are there. And these, I guess I would call them adolescents. I don't really know. I'm not very good at age guessing either. But so there's 3 coaches there and quite a few kids. And so he's a little apprehensive at first, which just in general, for Neil and I, we always say, okay, if you need more time, that's okay. We don't like labels, as we often say. So, we don't like being like, oh, you're shy or whatever. But anyway, so he just needed a bit more time to warm up and to kind of, get a sense of what was happening. Anyways, so I guess they were doing a bit of an icebreaker. And these are 4 to 6-year-olds, maybe. I don't even know the age range. Maybe 5 to 7, something like that. And so, they had a warm up. The sport of the day was soccer. So everyone's kicking around some balls. And then they were like, okay, everybody, come sit down on the line. He still didn't really want to sit on the line. So no problem. And we're also not a huge fan of forcing, in a sense. I wouldn't want him to just keep pushing him into something, because I feel like he's not going to enjoy it. And then next time he probably won't go. And obviously we paid money for this activity and we want him to enjoy it. So, he's still not sitting. And then the coaches are like, okay, we're going to introduce ourselves first. So my name is so-and-so, which I was saying to Neil, they use I don't know if you would call it an alias or whatever, but it took me until the 3rd one to realize it wasn't their real name. And they were like, you're going to say your favorite color. So first one went, he said, my name is so-and-so. My favorite color is yellow. And then the second one said, my name is so-and-so, my name, coach, whatever. And my favorite color is yellow. And, the third one said, my name is coach so-and-so and my favorite color is yellow. And then they said, we didn't plan for that to happen. So while this is happening, my son turns to me and he kind of whispers, he's like, Mommy. And I was like, yes. And he's like, is golden a cool color? And I was like, first of all, the fact that you just said golden and it wasn't just your, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong if red is your favorite color, but I thought that was so neat. I was like, golden. And he's told us before, his favorite color ranges from rainbow. Sometimes it's some sparkly color, but in the moment it was golden. So I said to him, well, if that's your favorite color, then that's the best color you can say. Right? And, so then some of the other kids go and they call his name and he didn't really want to raise his hand and they kind of skipped over him. And here I am he's over here. And so I asked him if he wanted me to say it because he didn't want to say it. So I said his favorite color is golden. And they were like, that's awesome. And that made me think of be unique, be who you are, own what you like. And again, drown out that noise. No one says you have to follow the trend that's happening. You know, I feel like when I was in grade school, everyone was wearing overalls at some point. And like, I remember saying to my parents, like, I really would like to go buy a pair of overalls. I did personally, though I will tell you, I hated overalls. I was like, why would I want to wear overalls? I don't want to wear overalls. All the girls were wearing overalls. So I was like, I need to go get overalls. So they did. They took me to buy overalls and I wore them and I hated them. And I really didn't like going to the bathroom with them. Like it was just a mess. Like I just, not actually a mess in the bathroom, but just like, why, like a mess personally, like why would I want to do this? So, you know, it really made me think of life is about being unique and being yourself, because if you can step into the comfort of being yourself and owning what you love, and then at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what other people think because they're not you. And, you know, it brings me into the other story. So I feel like I'm taking a lot of space up in the podcast, but when I see this, I love it so much. So there's this other story of our youngest, and like, wow, is our youngest, I feel like, ever her own trailblazer. She totally beats her own drum in a sense. You know, she doesn't take anything from anybody. She speaks up immediately anytime she needs something, which is amazing. All, I think, very wonderful traits to have. In fact, I feel like often I want to learn from her. So, you know, in typical, well, now she's 4, but in typical 3-year-old fashion, sometimes they just want to pick what they want to pick. And I think when I say that, a lot of you can picture like that child that's wearing like rain boots with a bathing suit, with like a toque on their head and I don't know, gloves and something like flip-flops or something. I don't know. Right. Like it's their own style. And we probably each even have a picture like that. And often, I mean, if it's appropriate, we'll let her just wear whatever. Except the other day you did hear me tell a story about how like, you know, putting on winter boots in the winter is a very big struggle. So the one day she wakes up and you know what she chooses? She has this obsession with what she likes to call pants with socks, also known as stockings, or what I refer to as pantyhose. Like, I really don't know what else to call them but pantyhose, and I don't know if anyone else still calls them pantyhose. So you know what she wears? She wears a t-shirt with pantyhose. And we were decorating the tree for Christmas. And she was just owning that style. And I was telling a friend of mine that she's just rocking this style. And she was like, you know what? There is like a celebrity, I think, that started doing that, which I thought was kind of funny. But we were like, you know, be whoever you are. Like, if you're not hurting anybody, if like what you're doing isn't hurting anybody, you're hurting yourself, like that's fine. Be who you want to be. And it made me think of like, do you remember that carbon copy paper?
Yeah, I certainly do. The triplicates, right? Where it's white, yellow, and pink.
Yeah, which I loved. So I wanted to be a teacher at one point because I love stationery. I love paper. Probably neither here nor there with that. But it made me think of that paper, and like, no matter how hard you pressed, sometimes it wouldn't come through as a copy on the other side, right? So I feel like the harder we try to be like someone else or to hop on a trend that we don't really want to, and it's going against, like, I think we can all feel it too, right? Like if you want to, you know, try and replicate somebody else, like, first of all, it's not possible. And second of all, it just strays further away from what you want to be like or what you want to do. And this is Neil and I's philosophy, I feel like, since we've been together. Because I mean, you've heard Neil say before, there's lots of people, including my mom, who are like, there's no way you can love each other at 16. There's no way you can do that. And I think we all hear that a lot in our lives of like, you can't do that, or, I don't believe you, or why are you wearing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you talking like that? There's always, unfortunately, sometimes somebody that is either questioning what we're doing or making us doubt ourselves and what we really love, or like who we want to be, or what we want, or who we want to love, right? With me and you. And so I feel like sometimes the bravest thing that you can do is be unique and be yourself. Like in that moment, it probably felt like such a big thing for him to like say golden, or that golden was his color, because he wasn't sure. He wanted to be accepted. And he actually asked me, he said, is that cool? Because like if you, like the underlying message I feel like to that was like, if you think it's cool and if you say it's cool, then I'll totally say it, because at least you're backing me up. And sometimes we need those people in our life, right? Sometimes you need at least that one person that is going to like hop onto something with you, and there's more comfort in that. But I think there's something so brave about just you could start a trend. I mean, not that you wanted to, or you may not want that, but you could start something where everyone all of a sudden wants to do what you're doing because you were brave enough to be the first one.
Yeah, that story, or, being unique, us doing our own thing, picking new things to make trends, makes me think of two things that we did on our wedding day that really we did because we wanted to. And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I really don't feel like a lot of people already did. So one of them was having our same day reveal of me seeing you in your beautiful wedding dress before the ceremony in an intimate one-on-one manner that we videotaped. And maybe we'll put the link in the description below for everyone to see, because it's a very lovely moment and memory for us. Mm-hmm. But I don't remember in our research of weddings a lot of people doing that. And I know it's definitely a trend now. It's caught on fire however many years after we got married, but that was something that you and me, between each other, was unique for us and for others that hadn't heard of it. Mm-hmm. To have that moment where I hadn't seen you in your dress, it was the first time, but it wasn't at the ceremony. We had the time to slow down, take it all in, and reflect on what an amazing day and moment this was, and have it photographed and videoed. So that life is being unique is what made me think of that story. Mm-hmm. And then as well in our wedding, you had some lovely shoes that were painted. And I believe, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, one of our friends, Deborah, who was an amazing creative person, hand-painted white high heel shoes, which you didn't really wear other than for photographs, but they still sit in our home in a glass case to this day. But you, I believe, were number 3 out of her new business adventure.
I'd have to check.
Which was, yeah. But it then, again, caught on to be a trend where she went all the way to New York Fashion Week with these hand-painted shoes that other people started to want and thought were very unique. And so those two stories were the first that popped to my mind about us, doing our own thing, being unique, not hopping on any trends, and really just doing what we felt we loved and wanted to do.
Well, that's exactly it. Because what I was going to say in those stories too, that you just told, is that we made those decisions because they felt right for us. Right. And probably if we were to rewind and kind of go back to that moment, I'm sure if you reflected on it, you probably would remember a couple conversations where I doubted it at first. And then ultimately we just did it. Right. And I think we talked about this in Life is Better Slowed Down, about how we made decisions, and it's about, we wanted to just do what we wanted to do that day, to be honest. And I think that goes along with just being unique, owning who you are. Your story is your story. You can choose to incorporate other people's stories together, or you can build one together, but it really is about like your pen on that page, right? If I'm writing my story, I'm not saying like, hey, Neil, come here and like write this sentence for me in my notebook. Like that'd be kind of weird, right? Like if I was writing a story and I was like, hey, can you come write this paragraph? I'm going to tell you what it is. Can you write it for me? It'd be kind of weird. I don't know. So I loved like hearing him say that. And I loved seeing, at the end of the day, like I said it out loud for him. And sometimes maybe that's a good kind of metaphor in a sense, is like, you need somebody to say it out loud for you. Right?
Yeah.
And say, like, this is something that we're saying a lot now, because actually Glenn said it. He was the first one to say it to me, he's like, say those big dreams out loud. And I love that line so much. And you have been saying that to me too. And certainly sometimes, these things again catch on, depending on who's saying it to you and when. But I love that, is like, sometimes you got to say things out loud, or you have to have someone that's going to say it out loud for you to start the momentum. And, for you to get then more comfortable in your own journey of being unique. Because realistically, okay, let's go back.
Yeah.
Like, let's go back to the overall story. Like, I don't know, if I didn't wear a pair of overalls, we could probably all think of a story where we didn't feel great about, because it can be all about that. For some reason, kids are also all about shoes. Like, shoes are a big thing. Like, kids always notice shoes. But, like, even now, let's say, I don't know, I didn't hop on a certain trend. Like, really, is that, like, what is the impact of that on my life? If I want to, that's fine. We're like, by all means, we're not saying don't hop onto a trend if you love it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think what we're trying to say is, if something feels right for you, that is your decision. And if that makes you unique because nobody else is doing that, well, that's okay. There's so much beauty and positivity in being unique in who you are. Okay, so life happens, and, we don't have any official equipment. So we're just going to rewind. And we don't really know what happened there, but the computer just stopped recording. And it's such an important conversation. And Neil was mentioning something about, it's not about fitting in, I think you were saying. Anyways, I'll just pass it off to you, and let's get back on that train of thought.
Your story about wearing overalls and, trying to fit in with what other people were doing and trends, and it not really being a part of what you wanted, or I feel other people can relate to it. So I've heard from other experts, which I am not, that the opposite of fitting in is actually acceptance. Having people that accept you for your unique personality choices, your unique thoughts and colors and style. So that really made me think about, our son just really wanted to be accepted for having a color choice of golden, right? Like, he didn't want to fit in. He wanted to just be accepted. And that's something that I feel everyone just really wants to be when it comes to their choices of being unique, and not necessarily fitting in with what you're not.
Whoa. I feel like I just got goosebumps. And I'm so glad that we ended up coming back, because I wanted to know what your thought was on that too. You were starting a train of thought, and then life happens. Technology didn't cooperate. This is like it reminds me of the very first podcast that we ever recorded. And I'm so glad that we came back for that thought, because it's so true.
Yeah, and I think that's a great message that we maybe haven't heard as much, that in our generation, that we can now maybe instill in our kids and future generations, that it's really not about fitting in. It's about being accepted for who you are, what you believe in, and what you love, who you love, all that stuff that we know to be true. So, this topic, I guess I'll take from your page. I love this topic. It's amazing to talk about. I think it's very necessary to talk about, because so many people maybe feel hesitant to share their unique style or choices. And I'll circle back to something that you've said in a previous podcast. The best decision is the decision that you make. And part of that is knowing who you are and what you want to be.
And on that note, I want to circle back to what started it all almost, and what pushed us to record this podcast, because you said, one of your buckets in the new year that you want to focus on is yourself. Or like on the flip side of that, for me, I would say on myself. And I think that resonated with a lot of people, right? Is focusing on myself and getting over that whole notion that focusing on yourself is selfish. And so be who you are.
Because, absolutely. Focusing on yourself is just so important. I think it was something that, again, was never, and I don't think it is taught to anybody, that it's up to us to teach other people, or at least share our stories about it, to maybe make people think about their own journey, because it really goes a long way to accepting who you are, right? If you can focus on yourself, if you can find more things about yourself that you weren't accepting of, or that you didn't want to put out there. So, I think as this evolves, as this part of myself, which is this podcast, evolves, I just start to really get energized with sharing stories and ideas with you, and of course the greater you of our community, because I feel that it's just such an important way to share our journey and stories, to maybe help somebody, at least one person, focus on themselves, and they're accepting what they love, whether it's golden, rainbow, or whatever it may be. Do you have any other stories about being unique that you wanted to share? That, because I know this topic was very top of mind for you. You brought this to me, again, being unique in our flexibility. Did you have anything else that you wanted to share on being unique?
I don't think so. I appreciate you asking me always, because it gives me the space to think of all my different stories. But I really love how you said that about, sometimes it's about being accepted. And also sometimes we're uncovering still, like, what we love, what makes us unique, who we are. And it's really like listening to that inner voice, listening to our gut. And I love that you brought back, like, the best decision is the one that you make. So I think being unique can cover so many different things in a sense. But ultimately it's about really leaning into like just being who you are.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that on the topic of being unique, one thing that we want to share with all of you is a unique part of what we want to do moving forward is we want to share stories of other people in our community and bring them on as guests every so often in a unique fashion where we let them sort of share their stories and how they are integrated in our lives. So that's something that will be upcoming next week in some of our episodes that we'll have a guest on. And along those lines, it's also very important to us to bring in others' perspectives on life so that we can share them with you in this wonderful platform. So thank you again to everyone here that's joined us, whether you're a return listener or a viewer, or this is your first time. We look forward to sharing our journey again